it's always kind of a challenge for me to decide exactly, which Faith Rivera song do I want to speak to. And yet this time it was more about the feeling. And when I went through all the songs that I was looking at, I heard this, and it's on your Hawaiian album, it's on your new album. Your new Hawaiian album, Rita. I guess there's been so much Hawaii around here, it just resonated with me. Every day I come to work, Rita says, "Aloha." And I say, "Good morning." So I heard this song, and it just touched me, and it moved me, and it really spoke to me, especially with what I wanted to talk about today, especially with what I talked about last week. So last week, I read the Ernest Holmes quote, "We should awaken not to our divinity, but to our humanity." And I don't know about you, but I'd like to think that you don't leave here and forget everything I've said and just go, "That was fun, now what?" That you leave here and the thoughts, yeah, see, they do. So the thoughts, I would like to think that you leave here and the thoughts kind of sit with you and they work with you in your life. Well, they do for me. And this is my commandment, love one another even as I have loved you. I took that as a challenge last week. Watching The Passion of Christ really did affect me. And I lived it twice. I was crucified twice on a cross. I mean, physically, many times through life, I'm sure. But when I watched that movie last week, it really did affect me. And I did take it as a challenge. And I decided that I would continue my life with the two words, love only. Only love. That I would love only. And I went through my week, and every night before I went to bed, I would ask myself, did I love enough today? And it really touched me. Did I love enough today? Did I love only? Did I only love? And what I realized was that when you decide to love only, there's not a lot of people perhaps that are in that same camp with you. And I felt myself throughout the week going, being like, come on, just love only, get with the program, which is not so loving. And I realized that there's a lot of challenge to being Jesus the Christ. There is a lot. It's a difficult thing to be in this world. Loving. Did anybody else find that this week? Was there anything in your week that you perhaps weren't so loving about? So it was a challenging week. I didn't realize that my own words to me would literally trip me up throughout the entire week. And yet every night I still went to bed. And I said, did you love enough today? And my answer was usually, I must tell you, no, I didn't. And then when I'd say, did you love only today? I could hear the laughter in my head. Yeah, that's what you did today. So, but that doesn't mean I'm going to stop. Because I can tell you this, I loved more last week than I've loved in a long time. And I got better at loving only, and I got better at coming from that place. And even though there was a lot to trip me up, I didn't trip a lot. I saw it, and I did what I needed to do about it. Not often quickly, sometimes it took me a bit, but that was my intent. So, did I love only? So what that really means is, did I surrender up all the crap in my life? Does anybody find any crap in their life? Yeah. So the question is, what do you do with it? And so do I surrender it up? Did I surrender it up? Which, when you make an intention to love only, you really can see how much other stuff there seems to be than love. And then you start to realize that the stuff, if you back up far enough, is actually love, camouflaging itself as something else. Fear comes from love. Worry comes from love. Anger, believe it or not, comes from love. Disappointment, passion comes from love. Creativity comes from love. Kindness comes from love. Now it's getting easier to see, isn't it? Compassion comes from love. Desire comes from love. Why? Why do all these things come from love? Because they are all part of the one substance, that creative energy, that thing that we call mind, the thing we call God, the thing we call love, life force. It all comes from that. Fear comes from that. Discouragement comes from that. Anxiety comes from that. Anger comes from that. Love is the energy back of all things. So, it would make sense that if I were to love only, I would have to back up from everything and thereby surrender myself and fall in love. So, this is what I call spiritual logic. And those of you that are in CPR know that that's a big thing for me, spiritual logic. I need to make spiritually logical sense out of everything because then my mind buys it. I want to buy into what I know is the truth. But I will buy into it more if I can make sense out of it. It's not easy. I'm not a sucker. I don't buy into something because it looks nice, even though Kevin says I do occasionally. So, I had to ask myself, how long am I willing to hang out with all this stuff before I back up? Before I back up enough? And that brings me to Faith's song. And it's a question for you. How long do you need to hang out with all the stuff in your life? How long does it take you to actually realize you need to back up? As Gladys said to the Pips, back up. Because that's what you are, you're back up. How long does it take you You'll get it, just keep up with me. How long does it take you to actually decide to back up? So, Faith's song. In the song, one of the lyrics is, there will always be something that guides my way. There will always be something that guides my way. I know that if I ask you, how many of you believe that there always is something to guide you? Every one of you will say, yes, we believe that. So why can't we always hear the guide? What is it that keeps us from hearing the truth? What is it that keeps us separate from the love, or at least feeling like we are? What is it? What's going on that keeps us from hearing this guided message at all times? What gets in the way? Well, the answer is the congestion of the mind. And Alex's talk before this was perfect. The congestion of the mind, race consciousness. Everything that's ever been thought up to this point is still present. Everything that's ever been thought by anyone ever is still present, and we are subject to it to the degree that we allow ourselves to be, and to the degree that we stay in that congested mind. So, this week we started CPR, and we also started, Jonathan Zen started teaching mental muscle. And I'm very excited that Jonathan is teaching mental muscle because I decided to take it and actually pay him to take my course, which he thought was silly and I thought was necessary, to pay him to take my course, and I did. So I'm in mental muscle, and I'm just in mental muscle now. I'm not facilitating it. I'm not trying to figure it out. I'm not trying to figure you out. I'm trying to just... and I'm allowing myself to just be in mental muscle. So my word, and although Jonathan says, because the guy that wrote the book says, don't share your word, I'm going to share my word because I have no fear. My word is renewal. And the word came to me instantly. When Jonathan asked the question online, it came to me instantly. Renewal. I knew exactly what it meant. That I need to be renewed. I need to do things for myself that renews myself. So this week, I decided, yesterday when I woke up, I said, I'm going to Burke Williams today. I'm going to go to Burke Williams, and I'm going to get a massage, and I'm going to hang out in the steam room. I'm sitting in the jacuzzi. I'm not going into the cold plunge. And I'm going to do all the things to nurture myself. And there was a room there called the quiet room. There was a men's quiet room and a women's quiet room. And so the guy opened the door and said, this is the quiet room. No one ever goes in there. And I thought to myself, how odd. So I, of course, went into the quiet room in my beautiful plush Burke Williams robe. And I had an Eckhart Tolle book with me, and I remembered my glasses, thank God. And I got into my little quiet cubicle, and I turned the light on, and I started to read Eckhart Tolle's book called Stillness Speaks, which I had bought, like many of you buy. I'd bought that book probably 2 years ago, and it beautifully adorned my bookcase. Until yesterday, when I picked it up and thought, oh, Stillness Speaks, that will be good for Burke Williams. Doesn't that make sense? Perfect. So I opened it up, and of course, not only did it make sense, but it was absolutely perfect. And I'm sitting in the quiet room comfortable as I've ever been. And I had just had a little Russian man, and I mean little because he was like this little spark plug, literally put every ounce of his body into my neck and back. And it was like the most intense massage that I have ever had in my life. And I loved it. I was like, kill me some more. Yeah, it was just awesome. So I sat in that room, and I was so comfortable. I was obviously pummeled into relaxation. And I started reading the book. And I'd like to read you a little bit of what what Eckhart Tolle wrote. He said, and this is about backing up. Can I back up far enough to really hear what I need to hear that thing that guides us all times? So he says this, pay attention to the gap. He doesn't mean the store. Just waiting. Okay. Pay attention to the gap between two thoughts, the brief, silent space between words in a conversation, between the notes of a piano or flute, or the gap between the in-breath and the out-breath. He says, when you pay attention to those gaps, awareness of something becomes just awareness. The formless dimension of pure consciousness arises from within you. So when you stop paying attention to something and you just step into the gap, you are pure consciousness. In that moment, you are 100% accessible to that which guides you. Now, what's great about this book is, as it continued, was that it talked about, don't think you have to, I loved reading this, don't think you have to go somewhere quiet to find this. I was like, well, just because I found it that way, you don't have to find it that way. He says, because you should be able to find it in the midst of the loud. So in the midst of the congestion, you can find the gap. Pure consciousness. And it is as simple as a sunrise. I don't make the sunrise every morning, do you? No, we don't. Just like we don't have to work really hard to let God speak through us. But we do have to back up far enough. We need to back up to see it in all its glory. Now, today's talk title, which I came up with over a week ago, is called Desire and Decision. And it was going to be a very different talk until my life unfolded perfectly, I might add. And Megan Densmore, who was a member of our church who now lives in New York City, she put a quote on the CPR this morning. It was just brilliant. She said, because she uses, my life is unfolding perfectly. And then she said, and now I say, my life is unfolding perfectly. And I am awake enough to actually see the proof that that is the truth of my life. So that's why I started today with, are we awake? Are you awake? I love that he just stares at me. Do you get this? And he looked away. So desire and decision. Divine desire. How many of you have a desire in your heart that you wish to have manifest? How many? Is everyone on board with that? Does everyone have some desire in them? Well, here's what I'm here to tell you. There are desires in you that you don't know yet. And we get tripped up focusing on something, thinking we have to make it happen, and we forget to step back far enough and to allow that gap consciousness to bring other desires forward. There is a desire in you today. Now, just say to yourself, what if? What if there was a desire in you today that has just been in there struggling to get out because of your congested mind? Because of the congestion of the world, because so much else gets your attention. And yet when I say to myself, only love, it's hard for things to get my attention and keep my attention. A lot of things got my attention this week. It took a lot to keep my attention, because if I'm going to insist on coming from only love, you can't keep my attention if that's not the vibration you're at. That's the work here. I've been going to the gym every morning and working out with Bob Morrissey. And because Bob obviously has a trained mind, and now he has a trained body. And I can tell you in the mornings, I have made a conscious effort, and Bob doesn't know that, but Bob has certainly reciprocated, in keeping our minds clean and clear, and staying on track and staying on point. And a lot of times this week we didn't talk a lot. We kind of we're just working and allowing space to be what it was. We need to be able to back up into our glory. So, divine desire. What desire is in you that you don't know is there yet? And how are you going to hear it? And I hope you are hearing from me this morning a possibility of how you might be able to hear it. And then there's decision. Desire and decision. Decision is what activates the desire. Your decision to do it. My decision last week to come from Only Love certainly activated a lot of stuff in my life. And I have to tell you, this has been an incredibly challenging week for me. Incredibly challenging. I was supposed to be at a workshop all week, being nurtured. I couldn't go because something happened first thing Monday morning. Before I even woke up, it had happened. And it's all fine. It was a health challenge of Kevin's mother, and she's fine. And she's made it through this week with flying colors. But even after that happened and I stayed here, some other things happened this week that were unbelievably challenging to me. And the whole time I'm like, it's like as soon as you decide to focus on something, do you ever notice it really gets big? So as soon as I said to myself, only love, everything in my body said, really? Try this on. Let's see, can you only love this? Can you really just love in this situation? And the answer has to be what? Yes. Yes, I can. And everything that I could think imaginable came out to pull me off of it. Do you ever notice that? Everything comes along to pull me off of what I've decided to do. Decision. Decision. If you're not doing it, you haven't decided to do it. If you are doing it, you've made the decision and you're following through on it. It's that clear. First the desire and then the decision. The desire without the decision is like a feather in the wind. It will blow and go wherever the wind takes it. And then you are susceptible to race consciousness. A decision about a desire is you taking charge. You know, I had a friend who was telling me how he wants to open this restaurant. And he was giving me all of the challenges of what it means to open a restaurant. And he was telling me all the work he's done in the business plan, and he had to do this, and he had to do that, and he has to find this, and he has to find that, and he's not sure about this and not sure about that. And I listened to all of it from love, only love. I did my best not to judge. Every time I found myself judging him, I stopped and judged myself for judging him, and then I had to get over that. And then as we were going home, I turned to him and I said, have you sat in the stillness yet and asked yourself, what do I need to know about this business? And he looked at me like I was speaking in Greek for a moment. He was like, what? I said, have you sat in the stillness yet and asked yourself, what do I need to know here? I said, because there's an answer inside of you to every one of those challenges you have. And you're not going to get it by figuring out what all these challenges mean. You're going to get it if you step into a place where there's something in you bigger than every one of these challenges. Every single person who succeeds against the odds, not with the odds. You do know that, right? Success is mostly success because you've succeeded against the odds. Because why? Because you've made a decision. If you have a desire and you make a decision, that decision has to include no matter what. It can't be, I decide to do this. Unless the economy gets bad, I'll think of something else. No, because there are people that are making a joke out of the economy. There are people who are succeeding prosperously in the face of an economy that's flagging. There are actors that all of a sudden get this unbelievable job out of nowhere, they think. Oh, I loved Holland Taylor when she won her first Emmy. She got up at the Emmy Awards and behind the podium, and she just looked out at all these adoring people that love her, and she just, 2 words. She looked out and she went, overnight. And she was like 60. Overnight. No, it's just the way it works, right? So, have you sat in the stillness and asked that guiding energy, what do I need to know here? Ancient wisdom is much simpler than we make it. We have what we need. We have everything we could ever possibly need. We don't have to go anywhere to find what we need. What we do have to do, however, is back up. We have to back up far enough that we stay in our truth and allow that thing to come through us. In the book, Eckhart Tolle writes this. He says, or Tolle. He writes, a spiritual teacher teaches nothing. And I love that because I'm really understanding that. A spiritual teacher inspires you to go deeper. That's all. Inspires you to go deeper. And I hope that I'm doing that this morning, although I don't hope, I know. Eckhart Tolle also wrote, a true spiritual teacher doesn't ask you to look at me, but look beyond me. Now, I know every single one of you has desires. You should. It's who you are. But today, I'm asking you to make a decision to back up far enough to not only hear the desires, but to back up far enough to put yourself into a conscious atmosphere where you are fearlessly able to make a decision that will not be impinged upon by anything outside of yourself. That's what we teach here. That's what we have the capacity to do. That's who we have the capacity to be. Right where, when I say right where I am, God is, that's what that means. So, because the Beatles got it right, all there is love. All there truly is love. And if you will commit with me to love only, then what you'll realize is you're going to spend a lot of time backing up. You're going to spend a lot of time backing back away from the situation. That doesn't mean you have to run away from it. It doesn't mean you have to yell at people that they need to love only. I'm learning that. It doesn't work. They go, well, you're not. But you do have to back up far enough consciously that you step your mind and put your mind into that conscious place where all there is love. All there is truth. All there is a resolve, a decision to love only, and then allow what comes from that love to take place. That's how we become the healing presence of the planet. That's how we become the healing presence in our own lives. Everything around me shifts. Everyone around me shifts. Here's the deal. I'm very happy if everyone around me shifts. What I don't want to have happen, I don't want to change because of those things around me that I don't like. I don't want to feel that I have to put up barriers and what are those things called? Boundaries, thank you. I don't want boundaries. I don't want to live in a world where boundaries are important, where boundaries are necessary. Because I believe if I back up far enough into just love, I'm not going to have to deal with those things that need boundaries. I really believe that what we teach, what I am equal to, shows up. If I am equal to only love, what must show up is only love. The opposite of that just won't find a welcome mat on my door. So I give that to you this week. In the stillness does speak. But you got to back up far enough to be in the stillness, and then only love. Namaste. Thank you.